This concept is going to go really fast because we already have a lot of things designed, so it's a matter of kind of slapping those together and kind of figuring that out. So we already have this typeface, I think, had a strong kind of look to it, and I want to find out how I can use that O to kind of play around with that a little bit. So I'm going to separate these elements. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this the, so it's in its own line. So we can mess around with that a little bit, make that a little bit smaller, and bring more emphasis on the coffee guild because we want to play around with that. Oh, I think it's the best character or letter to mess around with in this case. So one idea I did this in the sketching process, is putting the bean there in its place, maybe adding a little angle to it, a little character. And we can work on adding texture as well to the coffee bean, and we'll get that once the client approves. We're going to add texture and color and all sorts of fun things. So we're just going to kind of angle that, give it character. So that's a very, 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 very safe version for the client. They can definitely grab onto that concept. It's simple. So just copy and paste, and let's come up with a different iteration. And I want to use white space, or not necessarily white space, but it's called negative space. So this is we kind of studied that in the logo styles and logo characteristics, kind of what negative space looks like, and it kind of utilizes empty space to create a shape. And I'm going to fill in this area because we're going to do a negative space. So we're going to fill it in with a solid shape. I'm just going to take the eyedropper tool, match that color. So now I'm just going to bring this in and make it white. It's going to be a very simple idea. Make sure that's on the front and make that white. So it looks like it's punched out. Make it a little bit smaller. Make sure it looks like it's the center of the O. And so there's kind of a simple idea. And I think one thing we can do, instead of having the feels like it's an afterthought, just feels like it's kind of floating in midair. So what we could do is we can make the a little bit smaller and tuck it right here in the C, just like that. I think we can also soften the type a little bit, like we've done a lot in the past. So I'm creating outlines, and I'm just going to soften the type. And I might have to do that in separate elements, so I could do it all at once. Select all these, round it up. So here we are. I rounded the corners a little bit and kind of adjusted the O a little bit to kind of fit with this coffee cup, and we have the tucked in there, which looks really concise. It's all in this nice rectangle shape. You don't have the sticking up out there in the middle of the air. It kind of feels more concise in that kind of nice rectangle. So there's one concept, and what I like to do is, let me see if I can't match that same color to be consistent in our presentation. So there's one variation. There's another variation. These are very safe options for the client. And what I like to do sometimes with particular logos is to show them how they look in reverse. So show them how they look on a darker background to show them the flexibility. And one thing that I'm seeing here with this logo, just something I really want to tweak real quick, and kind of going through kind of my brainstorming process is why I leave all this in here, not to bore you guys, but to show you how I really think through stuff, is I think it's really left heavy. It's left aligned. It's very heavy on the left, especially because you have the focal point here. So I want to shift that a little bit to the right to balance it out a little more. So I'm going to line up the E and the D over here on the right, and notice how it shifts the focus a little bit more to the right and makes it more balanced. So just kind of thinking through those little small alignment issues. So now that we have that squared away, we can copy and paste. We also need to get an established date before we get too crazy. So established in 2016. We want to make sure we place that was a requirement of the client. So we can kind of tuck that nicely there. If we do here, it's going to have the problem of being too left heavy. So keep it to the right here. Bring more of that balance. See how it kind of goes from left to right. Kind of reads naturally because we read left to right and we read top down. Our eyes, that's how our eyes kind of scan things. So kind of having this coming up here, and then you're scanning down, and it kind of focuses back on the established. So it has a nice flow. So now finally we can copy and paste this in here, and we can reverse it out and make this maybe a light gray color, and we can kind of show how this looks. Maybe make it a pure white and make that a little bit darker. Kind of show the flexibility of the logo, and eventually we'll be adding texture to this. If this version gets approved by the client, we're going to add some texture to add a grittiness to it and a sense of kind of rawness. I like to extend this out. This is just for client presentation, which we're going to be doing in the next video. Just kind of stretching that across so it doesn't look like it's hanging out in a box. Kind of feels like it's really part of the background there. Okay, so we have 3 great, very safe options for them. We probably need to make those smaller. We're going to do that next. We're going to take all 3 of these concepts and we are going to send those to the client. Right now I'm just going to show you for fun some of the other different versions I came up with that are related to the last 2 that we did, just to kind of show you all the crazy kind of stuff you come up with when you're trying to think about and brainstorm ideas. I would go over all these in the class, but it would be a 20-hour class. You'd get bored to death. But just kind of showing you some. And the next lesson is all about client presentation and showing them your very first round of concepts. They're going to be in black and white. They're going to be simple. And I'm going to show you how to present that next.